Skills and Immigration with the Awareness and Outreach team within the Occupational Health and Safety Division. Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be partnering with the Cape Breton Regional Chamber of Commerce on this series of webinars we're going to be doing. This one this morning is sort of give you a little introduction on the occupational health and safety laws and how they can impact your business. The next one is going to be called Creating a Health and Safety Framework, and that's going to be on May 15th. And then the last one of this three-part series is going to be, it's called Looking to the Future, Using Health and Safety to Promote Recruitment and Retention, and that's going to happen on June 19th. So if you haven't already done so, please sign up for those other webinars. So the objectives for the webinar this morning, so we're going to review some of the occupational health and safety laws and the regulations that apply to businesses and talk a little bit about the safety branch and what we're all about. To help you understand your health and safety requirements and responsibilities for business owners as well as employees, and then to let you know about some of the tools, resources, and training that's available to business operators and employees that we developed through the Awareness and Outreach team. So just to give you a little bit of a background about myself and my colleague, so I'm a safety advisor with the Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration. I'm one of two. Sterling Kendall is the other safety advisor, and he's located in Dartmouth. And I'm here located in the Sydney office, and we cover the entire province of Nova Scotia. So we are the first two safety advisors that the safety branch has ever had. And the reason for that is why they created these roles is COVID-19. We can blame COVID-19 for a lot of things. But one thing we did discover was that a lot of particularly small businesses and employers in general really struggle with how to comply with the seem to be never-ending changing public health order that seem to be changing on a daily basis. So they said we really have to have some resources and services and people out there to help business navigate that. So sort of to lead into my role, our sort of areas of focus are medium to small businesses, typically less than 20 employees, but we never turn any businesses away who need our help. Young and youth and young workers with a focus on Aboriginal and African descent, recent immigrants and newcomers to Nova Scotia and Canada, and also educational institutions like post-secondary educational institutions that may offer, health and safety programs, or even some of the secondary schools like the cooperative education, tech ed, and options and opportunity programs. And just to give you, again, a little bit of a background about me, so prior to getting in this role in 2002, I was an occupational health and safety officer for 16 years. So I was the guy who would go out there and inspect whether it was a retail facility, healthcare, construction site. I would respond to serious incidents, complaints, and even fatalities. So as I mentioned, I did that for 16 years. And then in 2002, I took on this role as the safety advisor. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of the safety branch. So this is a branch of the Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration. We are within the Labor Division of Labor, Skills and Immigration. We're quite a large department. So as you can see here, kind of give you an overview of sort of how we're structured. So I sort of work in this area here. So this is my team, is the Awareness and Outreach. We're part of what's called the Occupational Health and Safety Division. And then we have the Technical Safety Division. So technical safety covers things like the amusement devices you see around the province, fuel safety, electrical safety, and a lot of the registration of equipment and certification of people to operate some of this equipment as well. That's their focus or main focus. And then we have what's called engineering and science. So these folks are ones you may encounter at a workplace. So if you're dealing with things like maybe indoor air quality issues, or maybe asbestos in a workplace, heat stress, those sorts of things, this team of our engineering and science folks are made up of engineers, as you can see from the name, as well as occupational hygienists. And then we have the inspection and compliance, as I mentioned before, as OHS officers. That's their area. We have investigators. We have 5 investigators across the province who do investigations into very serious incidents and fatalities. And then, as I mentioned, I'm part of the Awareness and Outreach. And most of our focus is on promotion and prevention of injury and illness in workplaces in Nova Scotia. So just to cover a little bit about the role of the Occupational Health and Safety Division. So, our main priority is improving the understanding of the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the regulations with a focus on the internal responsibility system. And I will talk about that as one of the, sort of the main topics this morning. We administer the Occupational Health and Safety Act and regulations and enforce where necessary, provide assistance to any person in relation to health and safety at the workplace. So whether you're a contractor, an employer, employee, joint occupational health and safety committee member, health and safety representative, engineers, architects. All these people are termed what we call workplace parties. So we provide assistance to them in whatever capacity that may be. And we also improve occupational health and safety conditions through, we do some research as well as our inspections, investigations, and of course our enforcement. So this figure here just kind of gives you an idea of what we call the pathways to compliance. So a lot of people, think that, well, the safety branch is just about going out and doing inspections and issuing tickets and fines and prosecuting people. And that's what people see in the media. Well, there's more to it. And this sort of gives you an idea of sort of where the thought process is and what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. So this isn't a linear process. As you can see there, there's sort of four areas. We've got promoting compliance, which is mainly probably about 98% of my work is in the promoting compliance part of the pathways to compliance. Then we've got setting requirements, enforcing requirements, and verifying compliance. And where we start with a particular employer really depends on a few things like the risk level of that particular sector that they may belong to, the safety maturity of that sector. There's a lot of different industries now that have safety associations, like construction safety has their own safety association, construction has their own safety association, trucking has their own safety association, the fishing industry. So a lot of these different sectors have sort of come together and developed their own safety associations. So that certainly has helped with, with their health and safety within that industry. Have there been repeat violations? What is their willingness to improve or to comply with the act and regulations? And, again, looking at whether it's the employer or employee with respect to culpability around what brings us to that workplace. So just to give you an idea of, we're just not out there doing enforcement all the time. There's a bunch of different things. For example, around the setting requirements, we just did a lot of engagements just prior to the end of December around psychological health and safety. And hopefully within the next few weeks, we're going to have a final report to say what's that going to look like for the province of Nova Scotia. So here's just to give you an idea of sort of the jurisdiction. So there's sort of two main jurisdictions. There's the federal jurisdiction around occupational health and safety, and then there's provincial jurisdiction. So as you can see to the left, federal, of course, the federal jurisdiction is federal employees, banks, anything that has to do with telecommunications, railways, airports, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, ferries, military, those sorts of things. And on the right-hand side is anything that's provincially regulated. So that would be manufacturing, industrial, mining, but not uranium mining, retail, forestry, municipalities, schools and universities, construction, and office work. And again, anything that's federal is not under our jurisdiction. And just to kind of contrast that, airports, yes, are federal. However, if a contractor was at an airport, say maybe operating a cafe, or there's a contractor there doing some renovations to the airport, that would actually be provincial jurisdiction. So sometimes there's some gray areas within the legislation, but we work through that. So talk a little bit about the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So the Nova Scotia Occupational Health and Safety Act, the newest one, so that came out in 1996, and that was as a result of the inquiry into the Westray mining disaster that happened in May 9th of 1992. So that came into effect in 1996. Prior to that, a lot of legislation was focused around, what we call the Factories Act, the Construction Safety Act, Industrial Safety Act, and then it's been replaced with our current OHS Act. So it applies to any employer that's under provincial jurisdiction. It does have a section under, I think it's 82 sub 1, that allows the minister to develop specific regulations, and I'll go into the specific regulations in a moment. And then the Act actually establishes a minimum standard for health and safety in the workplace. So this applies, the Act and the minimum standards apply to every workplace under provincial jurisdiction. I'll talk a little bit about what some of those requirements are. So under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, as you can see here, we have the Act, and in order to, you have the Act, and then that goes along with the Act are what we call the health and safety regulations. So some of the regulations we have here in Nova Scotia are what's called the Occupational Safety General Regulations, and this regulation covers things like lighting, ventilation, what's called personal protective equipment. So that would be things like protective footwear, protective eyewear, respiratory protection, those sorts of things, even guarding and equipment. Then we have what's called the Workplace Health and Safety Regulations. These came out, I believe it was in 2015. And the intent is to eventually get all of these regulations under this one regulation rather than having several regulations, and then employers have to decide, well, does this regulation apply to me, or does this regulation apply to me? So they would just go to the one workplace health and safety regulation. So since that came out, first aid regulations used to be a standalone regulation. Now it's been incorporated into the workplace health and safety regulation as a section within that regulation. And the first aid regulations in Nova Scotia were actually changed last year, June of 2022. And we've now adopted what's called a CSA standard. So it's a Canadian Standards Association standard. So basically what it means now is if you have a first aid kit in Nova Scotia, anywhere in the Maritime provinces, anywhere across Canada, from Nova Scotia to British Columbia, the first aid kit is the same. So what's in the first aid kit looks identical. And the same thing with the first aid training. The requirements for training is going to be identical in British Columbia as it is in Nova Scotia. So that was something that the provinces, a lot of provinces, jurisdictions are moving to, is to sort of coordinate and harmonize the legislation with standards. So it's consistent, because we have a lot of people who move across the country looking for work and doing various jobs. So we have fall protection is now under the workplace health and safety regulations, scaffolds, elevated work platforms, temporary workplace on highways, and then we have regulations that are specific to industry. So for example, underground mining, that's its own regulation. We have violence in the workplace, and that applies probably to a lot of you folks here in the webinar today. But under Section 4, it specifically lays out who these regulations apply to. And as I mentioned, we did some engagement sessions around psychological health and safety in Nova Scotia, and there's still some thought. Are we going to incorporate the workplace or psychological health and safety into the current violence in the workplace regulations? Is it going to psychological health and safety going to be a standalone? Are we going to totally replace the workplace violence in the workplace regulations? So we still don't know yet. The final report hasn't come out on that, so stay tuned for that. There's the smoke-free places regulations, WHMIS. Again, another specific regulation for a particular sector is occupational diving, and then blasting safety. So we'll talk about a couple of important concepts under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. One is what's called the internal responsibility system, and the other one is due diligence. And I'm just going to show you a quick video here on a quick video that the Awareness and Outreach team had helped develop to go along with some of our other resource materials that we have. So I'm just going to show that to you now.
We all have a responsibility to ensure workplaces are safe. Whether you're an employer, supervisor, or worker, we're all on the same team with different roles to ensure safe workplaces. So, what do you do if you see a health and safety issue or workplace hazard? Fix it if you can, report it if you can't, and always make sure safety is the top priority. Employers, you're like the team coach. And like all great coaches, you need a plan. Having a safety policy and program demonstrates that safety is a priority in your organization. Your plan provides the information that everyone needs to work safely at your place of business. You provide PPE, maintain equipment, machines, and materials. You also consult and cooperate with the organization's Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee, as required. Supervisors, you're the leaders on the ground, the team captains. It's your role to ensure everyone understands why safety is important. You assign work, give direction, offer training, inspect and investigate concerns, correct hazards within your control, and report hazards that are beyond your control. You also don't allow work to continue if hazards exist or have been reported. Employees, you are the hands-on of the job, the players on each shift. You know best when it comes to seeing and mitigating hazards within your control. To support your team, your role is to report a hazard if there is something that makes you feel unsafe. If you're not sure, consult with your Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee or a representative when you have questions, concerns, or insight. You have the best point of view on the field to identify safety issues. Safe workplaces are the most important outcome for everyone. Safety is everyone's business.
And so that make the right call slide you see there, or part of the video, was the campaign we've been running, I think, since about 2010, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as part of our resource and tools. So I'll talk about a little bit about the internal responsibility system. So, as I mentioned, a lot of the jurisdictions, a lot of provinces in Canada have, sort of harmonized their health and safety legislation. And there's a lot of similarities, and this is one of them. The internal responsibility system, whether you work in Newfoundland and Labrador or in British Columbia, you're going to hear that concept. It talks about, the internal responsibility system basically means that everyone within that workplace is responsible for health and safety. We are the only jurisdiction in Canada that actually has the IRS explicitly defined in our Occupational Health and Safety Act. I believe it's under Section 2 of the OHS Act here in Nova Scotia. We actually define what the IRS is. So this sort of diagram here kind of gives you an idea of when you look at any job, so whether you're a part of the board of directors, you're a manager, or you're a frontline worker, every job within your has a job description, and it has certain responsibilities and authority, sort of defined in your job. And so if you look at the internal responsibility system, basically authority and responsibility for health and safety flow down the organization by the way of delegation. So the director, delegates responsibilities and authorities to presidents, and then to the VP, manager down to supervisor, supervisor down to employee. So the health and safety work becomes more detailed and operational as it moves down. So if you think about a workplace, typically who are the people who are more apt to get injured or ill at the workplace are those who are sort of at the front line, sort of, doing that sort of the boots on the ground work. So the most important element to remember about the internal responsibility system is that it's about personal responsibility. It's not somebody else is responsible for health and safety. Yes, they are, but everyone has to understand that you have responsibility as well. It's not just my supervisor who's responsible for my safety. I'm responsible for my health and safety too. So as you can see from the diagram, the IRS starts with the board of directors and refers, as I said, to the delegation of responsibility and authority for work on down to sort of the operative or frontline worker. And the accountability part of the internal responsibility system is about checking to see whether the responsibilities for health and safety are being fulfilled and whether the authority is being exercised properly. So that's part of the accountability piece. It's one thing to give somebody responsibility and authority to do something, to do some sort of a task or work, but it's something else that you need to determine, okay, from an accountability perspective, are they carrying out those responsibilities and are they exercising their authority properly? So as I mentioned, the internal responsibility system, so if you break it down sort of in those three words, internal is basically responsibility for health and safety is internal to the workplace, and it's also internal to the work that you do every day. It's something that shouldn't be in addition to, it should be something that's sort of second nature that you do every day. The responsibility is about the personal duties of every workplace party. And as I mentioned before, workplace parties could be an employee, the supervisor, employer, engineers, architects, contractors, constructors, even owners of properties that are used for workplaces. They have a responsibility under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Secondary to your responsibilities and duties are the three rights. And I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about the three rights, but basically it's the three rights of employees under the Occupational Health and Safety Act is the right to know, the right to refuse, and the right to participate. So you have the right to know about hazards in your workplace, you have the right to know about what training you need, you have the right to refuse work that you believe is unsafe, either to you or to someone else in your workplace, and you have the right to participate in health and safety, and that being, you have the right to voice concerns about maybe some training you need or some hazards that you may encounter. And these three rights, again, are right across Canada. So in every province in Canada, you're going to hear people talk about the three rights. And then it's about a system. So, workplaces are systems. They're systems of people interacting with one another. They're systems of people interacting with tools and equipment. So it's really important that people understand that there's many parts and pieces that are moving. As I said, there's people, equipment, there's also policies and procedures. And these are all sort of working together to help minimize risk and to reduce injuries in the workplace. So the next thing I'm going to talk about are sort of the two main responsibilities or I guess sort of main players within the Occupational Health and Safety Act. This is the employer, which is under Section 13 of the OHS Act, and the employer, which is under Section 17. So if you go to Section 13 of your Occupational Health and Safety Act, which I know everyone would have posted in your workplace, that's one of the requirements for any workplace in Nova Scotia, regardless of the size. So basically, Section 13 applies to employers, and it talks about your precautions and your duties. And this is to ensure the health and safety of the workplace, and it talks about persons at an workplace. So the employers aren't just responsible for employees; you're also responsible for any person that may be affected by your workplace. So the example I use is a construction site. You're in downtown Sydney, and they could be doing some work on a building, and anything you may do could potentially affect somebody who's walking by your work site. So it's really important that employees and the employer understand that the work that we're doing could affect other people other than our employees. So we need to take the necessary precautions. You need to make sure that you provide and maintain tools, equipment, and machinery, and make sure that you provide the proper instruction and training, not only on tools and equipment, but even on roles within the workplace. So, having an onboarding process or a safety orientation process for your employees is really important. Like even letting them know, like, yeah, the internal responsibility system, that's a concept here in Nova Scotia, right across Canada. If you're large enough to require a joint occupational health and safety committee, then train them in what their functions are as a safety committee member. Or if you're not large enough, but if you have a health and safety representative, train those folks in the duties and functions they would have as a health and safety representative. Make sure that employers are familiar with hazards in the workplace. That's the main thing about this, everyone, is that you're trying to identify what are the hazards, what are the things in our workplace that can potentially hurt someone. And regardless of whether you're a retail outlet, even an office setting, a construction site, I mean, construction sites, it's pretty obvious to people that they're hazardous places to work. But even in an office, there are hazards in an office. So it's important that employers, understand that, realize that, and convey that to employees to say, look, like if there's hazards here, here's what they are. These are what we know that exist. And also understanding that as you do a work or do task, that you could create hazards. So being aware of that and making sure that's reported to your supervisor in your workplace. Employers need to cooperate with health and safety committees or representatives and the Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration. They also need to comply with the Act and the regulations and develop an occupational health and safety policy or program where needed. And I'll talk a little bit about what those requirements are. So Section 17, this is the section that applies to employees. And it basically says that employees must take every precaution to ensure the health and safety of others and themselves at the workplace. And that's every precaution, not just some. So it's really important employees understand this concept. And as I said, as part of a safety orientation or onboarding process, you really should ensure that employees even get a look at the Act and understand that Section 17, that's what applies to you. So same thing, they need to cooperate with the committee or the health and safety representative, whatever you may have in your workplace, but also cooperate with the employer, fellow employees, and the Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration. They need to make sure that all protective devices, equipment, and clothing are properly used. So it's just not a matter of getting the training in it. Over the 16 years that I was inspector, there was many times where I'd go to a construction site and there would be employees working at height, and they would proudly show me that they had training in fall protection, yet I'm observing them there with no fall protection in place. There's no guardrails in place. They're not tied off. So it's really important that not only do you get the training, that you also apply the training that you received. Again, employees, like everyone, needs to comply with the Act and the regulations. And the key point here is that it's important that employees understand that if you encounter a hazard in the workplace, that you report it to your supervisor immediately. And the reason for this is that it's, again, part of the internal responsibility system. It's like, internally to the workplace, you need to help, you need to resolve any health and safety concerns within your workplace. But in order for like a supervisor or the employer to be able to do that, they need to know that there is a hazard. So it's really important that employees communicate this to the supervisor so you give them the opportunity to make things right. Next thing we're going to talk about is due diligence. So basically, due diligence means that everyone in the workplace understands and fulfills their roles, responsibilities, and duties in the workplace to keep themselves and others safe while working. Due diligence is something that you should be practicing every day. In legal terms, what due diligence is basically, it's the only defense that an organization or person has under the OHS Act for a strict liability defense. And what a strict liability defense means is that, well, basically it says you're strictly liable, but it's not like the criminal code where, under the criminal code, you're innocent until proven guilty. Well, with a strict liability defense like the Occupational Health and Safety Act, where there's an incident, obviously this happened. It's really like there's no denying that, this person got injured because his guard was off or they fell from this ladder or what have you. It's really there's strict liability here. It's just, where does the responsibility lie? Is it at the employer level? Is it at the supervisor level? Is it at the employee level? That's where sort of the investigation or incident investigation comes into play. Um, the question is, did you take all reasonable care to avoid harm to other persons or their property? So if you have an incident, you kind of look at yourself and say, okay, did we take all? And again, not just some, you have to take all reasonable precautions. And that's what we talk about, the reasonable person test. So what would a reasonable person in your circumstance or in that circumstance regarding an incident or a near miss or fatality, what should they have done in that particular circumstance? And it's activity based. So you must demonstrate with actions and before any kind of event occurs, not after. So you have to be able to establish, okay, we did this, we did a safety orientation, we did some training, we do safety talks, we inspect our equipment, but you have to be able to demonstrate that. And an important aspect of that, so how can you show due diligence, is documentation. So if it's not written down, it didn't happen. You can say that you've trained somebody, or you can say that we inspected that, but unless you have some sort of documentation to prove that you did, the inspection of that equipment, or you did the training or orientation of that employee, that becomes part of your due diligence. And as I mentioned, safety orientation and training is so important. So whether it's task-specific training, or if it's general information about occupational health and safety, or how to do inspections or investigations in your workplace, this is some of the information you should provide to employees. Also collaborating with your whether it's your health and safety committee or health and safety representative in your workplace, and communication. Communication is so big when it comes to, well, any workplace for that matter, but in particular around occupational health and safety, it's so important to communicate. If you have a concern, if you're lacking training, if there's hazards in the workplace, it's really important, and the information needs to flow both ways. So it needs to flow from the employer down to supervisors and your lead hands, or whoever your managers, right down to employees. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the tools and resources that are available to employers and employees in the workplace. So we recognize within the safety branch that we have a lot of newcomers and immigrants coming to Nova Scotia. We have lots of different, we have about 10 different languages now that we've developed resources for. So as you can see from the slide here, we have materials in English, French, Arabic, Hindi, Mi'kmaq, Portuguese, Russian, Chinese, Spanish, and Ukrainian. And some of these cards, the two largest cards on the left and the right sides of the screen, that's around our technical safety folks, just to promote some of the work that they do. There's the Make the Right Call campaign. We have some cards there. The ones in sort of the middle of the screen that talks about your rights and responsibilities. So on one side of the card, sort of on the left side of the card, it talks about your responsibilities, and on the right side, the right side of the card about your rights. And then on the back side of the card is some contact information for the safety branch. There's an area there for you can write in once you know who your health and safety committee members are, or if you have a health and safety representative, you can write their name down, and then you've always got the contact information there. So just recognizing that we have, multiple different workers in Nova Scotia now, and making sure that they're able to understand this information. So we do it in a bunch of different formats. And so this is a way of print material here. And so for the next slide, to sort of coincide with the internal responsibility system video that I showed you earlier, that 2-minute video, we also produced a brochure. So recognizing that not everyone learns by just reading material. Some people are very visual. So again, the IRS video is not a long video, but again, it just helps to sort of reinforce the concepts of what is the internal responsibility system, what is my role as an employee, as employer, committee members, those sorts of things. And just recognizing that people learn in different ways and like to have things in different formats. So this information is all available on our website. There's some links there. You'll see the QR codes in a couple of slides later. And this is another brochure that we developed. So when an occupational health and safety officer visits a workplace, So this is a video that we produce so employers and employees know what to expect when an OHS officer shows up. So I'm just going to show this video here. Hopefully it'll play as well.
Workplace safety is vital to every business. The requirements to operate a safe workplace can be different between businesses, and the Occupational Health and Safety Division of the Safety Branch is here to help. Safety officers visit businesses all over the province in all industry sectors to help inform employers and employees about workplace safety. Their job is to ensure Nova Scotia workers are healthy and safe while working. The officers are trained in many areas, including the law as it pertains to the workplaces, proper work practices, and investigative skills. So what should you expect when an OHS officer comes to visit? Let's find out.
Hi, my name is Officer Jennifer Bolivar.
And I'm David Begmin. We are from the Occupational Health and Safety Division of Nova Scotia.
Our role is to come into your workplace to help you achieve compliance with the Nova Scotia Occupational Health and Safety Act and regulations. As a safety officer, I am tasked to protect the rights of workers and encourage cooperation between management and staff by educating them on how to identify, assess, and control potential workplace hazards. Safe workplaces help reduce workplace accidents and minimize business losses. This can increase your bottom line.
If there is any safety concern, we will visit to inspect. By law, we can randomly show up and make sure everything is in compliance.
When I arrive, I identify myself to the business owner or representative on site, as well as a worker representative. We all have a discussion about why I'm here, if there are complaints, or if there are any safety issues they would like me to have reviewed. As occupational health and safety officers, we have a keen eye for safety. That's our specialty. Some of the things we are on the lookout for are safety signage, personal protective equipment, policies, procedures, safety education, and safety regimes. We may also work with employers to establish a well-functioning joint occupational health and safety committees. When I'm done, we all meet to go over my findings. I outline what I have seen and any changes required.
If there are issues on site, we can help make a plan with an employer to bring them into compliance. For some employers, no changes are needed. For others, it can be minor tweaks in how they operate. And for some, it can be a culture shift and revamping of how they conduct their business to ensure workplace safety is their priority.
As safety officers, if non-compliance issues are noticed at the workplace, we can issue warnings, orders, administrative penalties, summary offense tickets, or you can be charged under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. However, all this can be avoided through a positive safety culture at the workplace.
In extreme situations, the employer may have to work with legal representatives to remedy scenarios. And in dangerous cases, we will order equipment to be shut down or business operations to stop. These cases are rare, but know that our role is to ensure employee safety is always the top priority. This all may seem overwhelming to employers, but it's important that you need to know that we are here to help you to improve and ensure your workplace safety conditions meet the safety standards set forth by the province. This goal benefits both your employees and you. Happy, safe employees are more productive, have less downtime, and have fewer incidents that could affect a business financially. Ultimately, our goal is to ensure employees can do their job safely and at the end of their shift, go home free of injuries. Work safe, home safe every day.
For any questions and concerns,
Or to find out how to reach us to help you achieve your workplace safety goals,
contact us anytime.
So hopefully everyone was able to see and hear that okay. So just sort of a couple of points I just want to make about that video, and maybe I should have stressed it earlier, is that, the role of the Occupational Health and Safety Division and the Safety Branch is not to make your workplaces safe for you. That's your responsibility. That's part of the internal responsibility system. Some examples of why an OHS officer may show up at your workplace is maybe they receive a complaint, whether it's from an employee internally or for somebody externally. Maybe there is a serious incident, and under our legislation, certain things have to be reported to the Occupational Health and Safety Division. So, and depending, whether you have a workplace health and safety program or not, An OHS officer may attend your workplace to sort of follow through to do their investigation, but the expectation would be that you as an employer, you would investigate the incident to sort of get to the root cause and determine what sort of contributed to that so it doesn't happen in the future. There could be sector specific reasons why, we may have an uptake in particular incidents, not necessarily at your particular workplace, but within an industry. And we may say, okay, well, let's go have a look, for example, when that crane that collapsed there in Halifax, when that happened, the following months within after that, they said, okay, anytime there's any kind of crane work here across the province, we're going to look to make sure that they're following what they should to make sure that nothing like that happens elsewhere in the province. So there's several different reasons why, but the main point is to ensure that people understand that it's not the safety branch's responsibility to make sure that your workplace is health and safety for you. That's your responsibility as the employer, employees, committee members, all workplace parties at your workplace, your responsibility. Okay. So another little quick video. This is on a new mobile-friendly website we've created.
When you're stepping up safely for your job, use the NovaSafe app. Safety information made simple. A message from the Government of Nova Scotia.
So as you can see, there's the website address there, excuse me, to be able to access it. It's called NovaSafe. And it's, there we are. There, okay, this is what I want to show you. So there's the QR code. So if anybody has an opportunity to either scan that with your phone right now or go to the URL at the bottom of the screen. So it's something we've created to basically make health and safety information simple to access here in Nova Scotia. It seems like everybody has one of these, a mobile device. So whether it's a mobile phone or a tablet or even a desktop version, it's formatted to fit the particular device that you're using. So it provides plain language summary. So it'll, depending on the topic you go under, and right now we have about 35 different topics, and we're going to be adding more every year. I think our plan this year is to add another 16 different topics to the NovaSafe web mobile site. It provides a summary of the topic that you're looking at. It points you to the legislation that applies to a particular topic that you're interested in, and then also has some very valuable resources. So some of those resources are Nova Scotia based. Some of them are through what's called the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety. So it's a great application, folks. I really encourage you to put it on your mobile devices. And as I said, as long as you've got access to the internet, you can access this information rather than having to go through reams of paper copies of things. It's a great way to be able to access health and safety information right at your fingertips. So this another slide is about some of the guides that we have out. So we just recently launched this guide here is the assessing the risk of workplace violence that was just released, I think, last week. It hasn't been updated in probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. So now we have a new guide for that. This is a new one that's coming out. We've always had one for health and safety committees and health and safety representatives. So this will be coming out very shortly. You can access any of our guides here at this QR code. So if you scan that, that'll take you to our publications page on our website where you can access all these documents. So they're all available in digital formats. Some of them are in English and French, and we're also trying to get some of them in multiple languages as well. And then here's some information on some training instruction that you can access. So through the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, as well as Skills Online Nova Scotia. There's the QR code that'll bring you to our what's called our training page on our website. There's a couple of links there, one for CCOHS, one for Skills Online. You click on those links and that'll bring you to their website where you set up an account. So they can send you a link so that you can start registering for these courses. So through the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, every resident of Nova Scotia can take up to 5 free courses every year. Right now we have about 32 courses that are available for free. They vary in length of courses, and at the end of the course that you take through CCOHS or Skills Online Nova Scotia, you get a certificate of completion. So basically it'll say, congratulations, you've completed this course on whatever it may be, and they'll send you a copy. You can save it digitally or print it off and add it to your resume and sort of to help build up your resume and make you more attractive to potential employers. So just to show you these are some of the courses through CCOHS. We sort of track, what people take just by popularity. So orientation to health and safety, hazard and risks, ladder safety, workplace inspections, personal protective equipment, and preventing slips, trips, and falls. So those are the top 10 popular courses at CCOHS. There's more than these courses, just to make a point that there's more than these courses that are available, but these are the ones that are free. And there's other courses that if you want to pay for them, you can take them through CCOH as well. And then through Skills Online Nova Scotia, there's, again, 4 courses here that are specifically health and safety related, but there's other courses you can take too, like under communication and integration, cross-cultural communication, welcoming workplaces, workplace etiquette, managing employee performance. So there's lots of courses, again, through Nova Scotia Skills Online NS. They're free as well. Same thing, you get a certificate of completion when you complete the course. And I'm also going to promote a little bit, but this is one of the newest courses that we just released through Skills Online Nova Scotia. This is called the New and Vulnerable Worker Safety course. So this is a 5-module course. There's the 5 modules there: Introduction to Health and Safety, OHS Roles and Responsibilities, OHS Systems and Processes, High-Risk Hazards, and Occupational Specific Information. And that's the module I really like, is because at the end of the course, you can look at different occupations. You click on the occupation, and it'll tell you about the hazards that the typical hazards that you would run into for that occupation, and the control measures to prevent any injury or illness. And so this course will probably take about 3 hours to complete. And same thing again, you would get a certificate of completion when you complete the course. So it's available in French and English, and there's the QR code there if you want to sign up to take that course. And I also want to make mention of our the safety branch contact list. So this provides communications from the safety branch. So we, as you can see here, we have the signal. It'll be coming out actually within the next couple of weeks. This is our quarterly newsletter that we publish on all things that are going on within the safety branch. As part of that signal newsletter, we actually do put in statistics on incidents and injuries, inspections that we've done over the past few months. So if that's something that interests you, we also have some great topics in there. So if you're doing a toolbox talk or a safety talk for your employees, or just giving them general information on what's going on in health and safety in Nova Scotia, this is a great publication. So if you scan that QR code, as you can see, I like QR codes. So you can go to that and sign up for the safety branch contact list. And we also have what's called safety notifications. So as you see here, we have safety bulletins, safety notice, safety alerts, and what we call directives. So a safety bulletin is basically something that's a non-imminent danger practice or procedure, may have a level of safety if not addressed as soon as possible. A safety notice is something that's more of an informative bulletin, non-urgent, proactive communication on a safety issue. A safety alert is more imminent danger to a safety issue if not addressed, would likely lead to health and safety consequences. And the last one is what we call a safety directive. So it's an interpretation or application of the act, regulations, or a standard of the regulation which requires some action. A directive is legally binding and must be followed by the affected party. So again, if you sign up to our contact list, you can also get information, as I mentioned before, about the engagements we did around psychological health and safety. So if you get on the contact list, you can get notifications of things like that may be coming up in the future, or when that final report is going to be released about the engagements we did. And this is our, so I mentioned before, and you'll see it appeared on a few of our videos. It's called Make the Right Call. So this is a campaign that's been ongoing for more than 10 years now. So basically, this is a confidential 24-hour, 7 days a week line that's available for general information that you may be looking for with regard to health and safety, or reporting any safety concerns that you may see, whether it's at your own workplace or in a public place with respect to technical equipment. So you can either call the toll-free number, the 1-800-9-LABOR number, which is 1-800-952-2687, or you can send us an email. And as I mentioned, it's 100% confidential. The only time they may ask for your name and number is particularly if it's around a complaint or concern that you have of a workplace. They may ask for that just so when they dispatch an OHS officer for that particular area, they may be looking for additional information, because sometimes we don't always get enough detailed information to sort of steer us in the right location. So, but again, you're not obligated to provide your name or any contact information. And that's it for me, folks. I'm hoping that I didn't overwhelm you. I know it's a lot of information. And as I said, we do have a couple of more webinars coming up in this series. One talking about, developing a framework for your health and safety system in your workplace. And then the last one's going to be around using health and safety for recruitment and retention. So Megan, I don't know if you want to, if there's been any questions in the chat. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here if you want to check that, or if anyone has any questions.
I'm just gonna turn off the recording there too.